one of the things that I personally have been doing over the last 15 years or so is traveling around the United States and looking at crop circles. I am the director of an organization called the Independent Crop Circle Researchers Association. Archaeology is sort of my second hobby. And in looking at crop circles throughout the United States, we find that crop circles don't appear anywhere and everywhere, but crop circles tend to appear in conjunction with certain contextual features in the landscape. Over 95% of the crop circle formations that we've looked at in the Midwest appear with three things in the landscape. They appear near power lines, and in 85% of the cases, the formations that we surveyed, the closest pole, telephone pole or whatever, to the crop circle has a transformer box on it. Not all power line poles have transformer boxes on it, but that an overwhelming correlation seems to find those near to where crop circles form. Second thing that we find is that crop circles appear in close conjunction with water. A creek, a pond, a drainage ditch, right over the top of an aquifer. And our last speaker, Glenn Broughton, actually probably was the one that first discovered that idea. He made a map of crop circle formations in England in the early 1990s, which showed that all the crop circles were locating along what's known as the green sand aquifer. And so that sort of became a very important clue as to what may be going on with crop circles. The third thing is that crop circles seem to appear on the downslope or the bottom of a hill or the lowest point of the field. The vast majority of crop circles do that. And in this case, this is the drainage area of the downslope of the hill. And so this crop circle was up in Canada that I investigated a few years ago. It had all of these pictured nicely all in one place. But the fourth correlation, which is pretty high, is that 65% of the crop circle formations have been located very close to Native American mounds and earthworks, or ancient archaeological sites. And we think that number is actually higher because so many mounds have been obliterated over the course of time. And so this piece right here is what we're going to talk about going forward here for the next few minutes. Now, as some people here may know from listening to Freddie's talk or listening to Glenn and Cameron or just your own general sort of knowledge about crop circles, is that the greatest number of crop circles every year that are reported are in southern England amid a landscape of earthworks such as Avebury, Silbury Hill, Stonehenge, Barbary Castle, and many others. Well, it turns out that the greatest number of crop circles reported in the United States each year also are being located amidst an ancient landscape of earthworks. Places like Serpent Mound, the Great Miamisburg Mound, Serpent Mound, Fort Hill, and many others here. The highest concentration of crop circles reported has actually been in the state of Ohio, in the Ohio Valley, around where these earthworks are located. And this particular crop circle, which we'll get to near the end, was very close to this Native American earthwork known as Serpent Mound, and we'll talk about that later. Just to show you the similarities between the landscape in England and the landscape here, here's a picture of Silbury Hill, which is the largest intact man-made earthwork in all of Europe, and the Miamisburg Mound, which is not the largest of the earthworks, but it's the largest in the state of Ohio. And they're roughly similar in terms of shape and form, right? Stonehenge, we've heard a number of things about Stonehenge this weekend. It's been built with astronomical alignments encoded in it, and of course we just talked heavily about Serpent Mound and its astronomical alignments, but very similar sorts of ideas and concepts in terms of the earthworks and stuff. And one of the things that people don't really recognize about Stonehenge is the outer earthwork portion of it. You can see the circle and the avenue there. we see these kinds of large geometric earthwork circles and squares and octagons throughout the Ohio Valley. But just like in the first part of the talk, we use Serpent Mound as sort of a case study for our understanding of what's going on with these ancient sites. We're going to use this crop circle formation as sort of our keystone to understanding what the connection may be between the crop circles and these ancient sites. And so this crop circle appeared literally across the street from Serpent Mound back in 2003. And in the landscape here, here's Serpent Mound, here's Brush Creek, and if you remember the map, Brush Creek turns around and comes this direction, and Serpent Mound is right here, right on the top of that escarpment. There's a spring right over here, there are power lines. This, of course, is inside the crater, probably the only crop circle that's ever been reported inside of a meteorite crater. And one of the things that we know about this is that it's definitely not man-made. We did extensive scientific testing in this particular crop circle. I'm, again, a scientist by trade, so we go out and look at crop circles, and we do a bunch of different scientific tests on them. We will measure for the magnetic field strength. We will measure for the electric field strength. We'll measure for radioactivity. We will look at radio and microwave emissions. We will examine the plant structure to see if there are any changes to the plants. Sometimes we'll look at the magnetic content of the soil. And in this case, we can check the box on each one of those. Okay? I'm not going to go into all of the detail here. You can actually get this off of the ICCRA.org website. You can download a little PDF of the findings from the Serpent Mound crop circle. But all of this is just indicating that we found changes in the area of the crop circle, the flattened plants area, versus what we found outside of that in the field. One of the other things that we look at when we study crop circles is this was actually discovered by somebody that people may know in this audience. How many people remember Dr. Gerald Hawkins? Anybody? Handful of people. Dr. Gerald Hawkins, importantly, back in the early 1970s, was the guy that figured out all of the astronomical alignments encoded at Stonehenge. And he wrote several books about that. And in his later years, he started looking at crop circles. And one of the things that he found was that if there are a series of circles in the field of different sizes, you can take the diameter, measure the diameter of one and divide it into another, and you can get a mathematical ratio. And that those mathematical ratios weren't just any kind of ratio, they were very specific. They were diatonic ratios. And anybody know what a diatonic ratio is? Goes back to Pythagoras. Okay, diatonic ratios are essentially today known as sort of the musical intervals of the notes on a keyboard. So as you go from C to D, D to E, E to F, you get a series of notes. And so Serpent Mound actually encoded several diatonic ratios in it, and you could play those notes on a scale. And I didn't put the video in here, but if you go out to YouTube, just type in Serpent Mound crop circle, you'll get a video of my colleague Ted Robertson playing those notes on a harpsichord of both this crop circle and this crop circle, which came down right near the Miamisburg Mound, which I just showed a picture of on a previous slide. So you can listen to those, after you leave here today. Now, we've seen some of these geometric symbols, some of these sort of ancient knowledge symbols incorporated into the designs of crop circles around the world. And this particular one is encoding certain geometric principles in it. Ross mentioned that the Serpent Mound